Well, g'day, John O'Brake here for episode 7 of the Monday Myth Check, where we look at common held sayings that in and of themselves may seem correct and right, but they may be able to be challenged in terms of how they get implemented, or even if they're just outright wrong. And so today we're going to look at the statement, culture eats strategy for breakfast. And this one will probably land me in a lot of trouble, but it was actually popularized. It's erroneously attributed to Peter Drucker. It was actually popularized by Mark Fields, who was the CEO of Ford at the time. And basically what it means is that it doesn't matter how great a strategy is, it will fail if the culture doesn't match it. Now, there's some of that that's true. Now, at the end of the day, I'm a big fan of culture. Corporate culture has got to match. We just last time we talked about, a compelling why is all you need in business. Whilst it's very important, it's not the only thing. And so when we start to think about this, what I see a lot of people do is take this idea, because yes, you've got to have a good strategy and it's got to have a great culture that sits behind it to be able to execute on it, not just well, but profitably. And so what I want to look at is this conversation I often have with clients or with people, not my clients, but with people, maybe they're prospective clients once, but these are people who say, well, all I need is a great culture. Now, you need a great culture, right? But at the end of the day, if that's all you need, then that's not going to get you to where you need to be. Culture is massively important, but at the end of the day, what people do is they twist it around and they say, well, I need a culture before I need a strategy. Now, at the end of the day, your business is going to have a culture no matter what, right? Because it revolves around you, or it revolves around something that's been instituted if you're a leader in a larger business. And so it's going to have a culture anyway. And by the way, your team is going to have its own culture as well. So yes, culture is important, but at the end of the day, you need to build your strategy and your culture together. And so what a lot of people will do is they'll kind of separate the two and say, well, if I have a great culture, it'll take care of itself. It's kind of like last week we talked about, if I have a great why, well, then the how just takes care of itself. It just does not happen that way. And so we would come back to looking at some of those things where we think about, okay, if I've got a great culture and I've got to now think through my strategy. How does my strategy not just become a great one to make a profit off of and build all this cool stuff, but how does it enhance the culture of my business, right? So this is where sometimes the culture can eat the strategy alive rather than for breakfast, and really chew it up and spit it out. And so the other way around is we can become so strategic and probably more tactical, like profit focused or money driven or numbers driven and all those sorts of things, which again are important metrics. But if they're not done in the light of culture, if they're not done in the light of strategy, they become a game that we just end up chasing. And so we end up with these places of work where people don't enjoy showing up. They're just a number. The only way you can keep them is to reward them. We'll talk about that in another myth, that's the only way you can keep people. So this idea of culture and strategy, one doesn't outweigh the other in my view. Culture is massively important. The only thing about culture is that if you build that well, it does make strategy easier to implement. Okay, so it is very important that you work on both. And a lot of leaders will put culture aside and say, well, people are just here to work. But at the end of the day, people are here to do much more than work. So a great culture helps in retention, good retention. We've got people that trust each other. We've got people that enjoy showing up to work. Guess what? They're going to be way more productive and profitable. And that's not the only reason why we focus on culture, although I've seen some people do that. And again, you see the strategy, eat the culture alive. And so what we want to look at is how these two work hand in hand. And inside the Forge Mentor, we talk about this a lot. We talk about how you build a culture. If you're just a team of one, you've still got your clients, you've still got your vendors, you've still got all this thing going on where you are building a culture. Your culture is very much reflective of you. But even if you're a team of 10, 20, 100, 200, it's still very reflective of the leaders or the owners in that space. And it just needs to be better communicated and better framed, I guess. So I really wanted to put this forward today. I want you to think about what are some of the things that, maybe you're on your own and you're thinking, okay, well, how do I build a culture? Do I even have one? You need to be able to define your culture. What are some of the things? So things like values become important, why you exist, all those sorts of things. What are the certain ways we're going to behave? I use a thing called operating principles, right? This is how we show up to market, which are a little bit different to values, but certainly play off them. All these things become important and they sit inside the Forge Leaders Trail Markers in the purpose section, which then we can build a great strategy. Then we can bring the right people around it. Then we can communicate well and create repeatable processes that help us win. I want you to go back and think about, what kind of culture am I creating? Is it a bit far away from what I really want? Go and ask your team, ask your vendors, ask your clients, ask your suppliers, whoever it might be. Go and ask your investors, ask the people around you, am I creating the culture that I really want to create? It might be a bit revealing, but it'd be totally worth it. And when you're ready to have that conversation about what kind of culture you need to create, sit down with people who can help you with that. Come and join us at the Forge Mentor if you like. So think about that. Culture, whilst it is massively important, we shouldn't just put it aside or include it at the expense of strategy and vice versa. I'm John O'Brake. This has been Monday Myth Check. Culture eats strategy for breakfast. Enjoy the journey.